In this show, we discuss issues that are pertinent to the diaspora. And for the last almost 2 months, we've been talking about COVID-19 and how it affects the diaspora. Today, we want to discuss how this COVID-19 is affecting Kenyans, especially Kenyan students, and even the students who are in Kenya right now and had applied to come and study in the US in September. And there's no other group that you can have on this topic than two very high-ranking professors in the US. That's Professor Rotich and Professor Nasongo.
Good morning, or good evening, or good afternoon, whatever time it is. Like Mr. Wamalu has told you, my name's Professor Jerona Rotich. I am based at the University of North Carolina. In North Carolina, we have 15 universities in our system. I'm also a professor and a department chair in the university, and currently I'm serving as a president for the Kenya Scholars and Studies Association. I also founded an organization where Nasongo serves as a mentor for Kenyan students in diaspora, and then among other organizations. But I'm right now in Greensboro, North Carolina.
Awesome. Professor Nasongo?
This is Professor Wanjala Nasongo. I teach comparative politics at Rhodes College. It's a private university in Memphis, Tennessee. The immediate former chair of my Department of International Studies. And as Professor Rotich has mentioned, I also am a member of the Kenya Scholars and Studies Association. Nice to be with you this morning or this afternoon.
Professor Nasongo, before we even start this discussion, I'll personally like to pass my condolences to you for losing one of your best friends, and that is Ken Walbora. Many people don't know, but Ken Walbora is actually a diaspora. Ken spent a lot of time in the US. In fact, his family was in the US. And even though we can't talk about the circumstances that led to his demise, please just remember Ken the way you remember him with our viewers.
Ken was a very good friend of mine. I first met Ken, I think in March 2005, personally in Columbus, Ohio, when I was invited for a job interview. At the time, he had just started his master's degree at Ohio State University. We became friends from then on, and in fact, a year or two later, he visited me in Memphis with his family. They stayed with me for a couple of nights. We visited them in Wisconsin. We have visited them in Virginia. And last year, I applied for a fellowship at Codesria, and he was my link to Riara University. So I joined Ken in his Department of International Studies and Diplomacy at Riara University, and he had the generosity to actually host me in his apartment in Lavington. So for 2 months, I lived with Ken. And so when I started hearing news that he had passed on, I and my wife actually prayed very hard that if ever there was fake news, this should be it. It was very personal. It was a huge loss. He was a very humble gentleman, very generous with his time. He is even the one who dropped me off to the airport when I was leaving to come back on August 6th last year. So I stayed with him from June 4th to August 6th. It was a very huge loss. And the suddenness of that death is what really is quite disturbing.
Again, our condolences, Professor. I know Ken because I worked with him at Nation Media. Of course, he's somebody I know from home. It's just unfortunate that because of what happened and under those circumstances, we were not able to travel to say goodbye to him. But that is what it is. So we just pray for his soul to rest in eternal peace. Professor Rotich, I know you guys are involved in education very seriously in the US. And I know personally that I think you're still the president of Casa.
Yes, I am the president. Yes, I am still the president of Casa.
Yeah, please just speak briefly about the the objectives of Casa so that you lay the ground on what we're going to talk about, which is education and how education is affecting the diaspora community and how the diaspora community can benefit from initiatives like Casa.
Before I do that, I want to also express my condolences to the family, to my good friend, Professor Nasongo, to you on the passing of Dr. Walyabora. In our language, he was our brother-in-law. So I did not get to meet him, but I read a lot about him, and I know he's my brother-in-law because he married one of my sisters. So condolences, and we are with you. In reference to Casa, the Kenyan Scholars and Studies Association is an association that brings Kenyans together, Kenyan scholars and students and community leaders and community organizers. So we bring together individuals, organizations that are doing studies related to Kenya, and then also Kenyans who are in diaspora who are doing studies here. So we wanted to bring together because we have a lot of talent in this country. A lot of us have come back, have come to this country. We are doing a lot of good things in this country, but we wanted to come together and share our talents. So throughout the year, we have activities, we have events, and then we have an annual conference. And that's actually where I met Professor Nasongo. So it's one of those beautiful, it's like being home away because you get to be in a shelter of scholars and scholars who are doing studies in Kenya, as well as scholars here who are doing different studies. And we're always looking for opportunities to transfer those skills or how we can use those studies to help our country. One key component of that is mentoring. We mentor our students. So we mentor our graduate students, we mentor our master's students, our PhD students. We have sessions on how to transition from being a student to a faculty member or to the workplace. So we really want to bring everybody together. And I joined Casa 14 years ago, and I've never left. I've never missed a conference in Casa because it's just a fun and a great place to be. And personally, I share one more story.
Yeah, go ahead.
When I joined Casa, I was an assistant professor. I just completed my PhD, and I was trying to get help. So I just Googled. I Googled, and I found this Kenyan Scholars and Studies Association at that time. Kefa Otiso was the president. So I was invited, I went there, and I have never left Casa since then.
Awesome. And just while we are still on talking about Casa, so because Casa holds the annual meetings, given that everything is locked down, how is it? Are you still going to have the conference this year?
No, unfortunately, this is the first time we are canceling our conference. This was supposed to be our 13th conference in Dallas, Texas. We had to cancel because most of our conference participants are faculty members at the universities. We have students. So because travel has been reduced, most of our faculty travel has been totally cut. Funding has been cut. And then a good number of our attendants are also international faculty, international scholars. So we've had to postpone our conference until 2021. We will still be in Dallas, Texas. But what we are doing in lieu of that is we're having monthly Zoom sessions, Zoom discussions, Zoom conferences on issues around our scholarship, around our community, around our country, and around the world. So we'll be doing those sessions every fourth Thursday of every month from 8 p.m. until we get to Dallas next year.
Professor Nasongo, we always talk about the new world that we've lived in the last 2 months and seemingly beyond this. How is your classroom as it is right now? Because now you guys have to conduct classes from home. Give us a sense of how your classroom looks like as we speak.
Okay, thank you very much, Chris. It is quite a new experience because personally, I had not taught online classes, and my university does not offer online classes. So when this thing happened, the decision to close, we were actually on spring break for 1 week. So students had gone for spring break, and then the decision was made that the college would be closed. So students were only allowed to come back and pick their belongings and head back home. And so classes were then suspended for another full week so as to allow time for faculty to undergo training for this Zoom teaching, online teaching, and remote teaching. So we went through a training session, and we scrambled to convert our materials into online platforms. So we started teaching online via Zoom. It has been an interesting experience. It has run smoothly for the most part, so that I teach from home. Each morning, I tell my children, okay, I'm headed to class. And so you need to maintain silence. Yeah. And it has worked well. Students have remained very faithful, each one of them coming to class at the right time and participating. But I had one big problem in one of my classes. I'm teaching two classes. One class is international law, and the other one on identity conflicts in Africa. And I had a student from China. So when she returned to China, she was quarantined for 14 days. And during those 14 days, she did not have access to a proper internet. And so it was difficult for her. But fortunately, the Zoom platform actually records the lectures. So that then when she finds time, she goes back and actually watches the lecture and takes notes.
That's right.
So it has been quite an experience, but it is I'm learning that it is doable, and it has been great so far. We have finished the semester. Our grades were due today, actually at 9 in the morning. So it has gone very well.
Professor Rotich, how has been your experience?
Yes, I have. Yes, yes. Like Nasonga shared, mine has been very interesting and very difficult to say because I'm a department chair. I have had experience teaching online too, so that was not a problem to me because I've taught online undergrad, master's, and PhD. So that was not a problem. The biggest problem I had was ensuring knows this is that in the university, a lot of work is pushed to the department chairs. I have about 800 students in my department. I have about 40 faculty. So it was my responsibility to make sure that everybody's trained. So that was very difficult because you have faculty who have a lot of different experiences. The older faculty are the ones who really struggle. So I had to kind of walk them through. The university offered trainings, but just being there. Actually, there are some that students complained they were not getting what they were supposed to be doing. So I actually ended up co-teaching some of the classes. I had to get into their Blackboard space and actually be there with them. And, sometimes I was the one who was teaching. I'm saying, let's do this. So I decided to step up and do the mentoring role from actually inside the classroom. So I ended up being in a lot of the classrooms. One thing that we also had to do was we don't assume that everybody had the technology. So I had to make sure that all my faculty members got computers. So we purchased for those who did not have computers. We made sure they had computers. We made sure that they were set up. Like, for example, I'm working from home, but it's like bringing my desk. So we had to install all the software. And then also for the students, there were students who did not have the equipment. So we also purchased, or we gave them loaned laptops. So that was a key thing, making sure that everybody was in place. And then the other thing that I had to do was an internship. I was supervising one of the internships. That was actually a very challenging one because I had about 24 students. Some of them, their places of work closed. So that means they could not continue with that internship experience. So therefore, I had to come up with alternative, simulative activities so that they can finish their internship. So it was a very interesting, and every day was very different because I was getting different challenges from students, from faculty, from different, but we actually made it through. We submitted all our grades on Friday.
So you guys, I know you're in touch with your colleagues back in Kenya at the universities, and you've been sharing experiences. What kind of feedback have you received in terms of Kenya? Because we can say that a country like the US, it has the network in terms of accessibility to the internet. We can't say the same to Kenya, in spite of the fact that the network is fairly elaborate, and it's just the question. The issue is just it's not like here. There to go on the internet, you have to buy bundles, and it's very expensive. So what kind of feedback have you guys been receiving from your colleagues back in Kenya in terms of, because the universities are also closed? Professor Nasongo?
Yeah, thank you, Chris. I have been in discussion with a colleague of mine from the University of Nairobi in the Department of Political Science and Public Administration, and he informs me that they also went online. But what you mentioned is actually the major hurdle for them, accessing the internet. But he did mention to me that the university actually provided, made provision for each lecturer to have bundles. So I don't know how that worked out. But they were also teaching online. The serious problem is on the part of the students because of the same issues that you are raising, that not all students actually have access to a laptop, not all of them have access to internet, and so it becomes a very difficult task of ensuring. So in other words, while we here can do what is known as synchronous teaching, right? Everybody, wherever they are able to log in, and you actually do it live. In Nairobi, the sense I get was that it is very difficult. It is online teaching, but it is not meeting face-to-face like we are meeting now. That's the impression I got, again, from my other colleague at Kenyatta University. So it is like you go online, you upload materials, then students at different points in time access that material, read, and then give feedback or something like that, which is quite different with how I have experienced it here, where at 10 a.m. Central Time, all my students log on to Zoom and we meet and we are seeing each other face to face. I don't think it is something that is feasible in the case of our institutions back in Nairobi, at least from what I have heard from my colleague in Nairobi and one colleague at Kenyatta University.
Professor Rotich, how has been your experience, your feedback?
Yes, I think it's the same thing like my colleague, Professor Nasongo, shared. It's a problem because of the accessibility, unlike here where we made sure that all the students have access. We worked with the local companies to give them access. It was a big problem. This past week, we hosted one of my good friends, Mudeo Kasanga, who is the chair of the private schools in Kenya. And she's part of the Lukenya University. So that was the same information she shared, is what is happening in Kenya is the private schools, and it's actually not even the private, it's the private international institutions that actually have access to that, or is the high-scale schools that have access to that. Most of the public schools, that is a problem. Most of the Kenyan private schools, that is a problem. So that was an issue because I come from the village, I'm from Elgeyo Marakwet. Not everybody has access. And if you talk to some of them, the parents are like, that is not a priority right now. I was talking to one of the ladies in the village. She's like, no, that's not a priority right now. I'm focused on staying healthy and staying alive. Don't ask me about school later. So there's that diversity of experiences. And we are very much aware that, yes, not everybody has equal access. And it is a challenge as an academic professor, because when you're teaching, you want to make sure that all your students have access. And then the fact that also in the event that you need to give them feedback, like Nasongo said, all of them come to Crossing Road, but if they're not able to show up at that time because of different reasons, then you're able to go back, they're able to go back and review those notes, and you're able to actually go back and do one-on-one, which is not always the case there, because for one, they have large class size. Here in the US, we're privileged, the class are manageable. So you can actually get on one-on-one with all the students if you have to. But that is not the case with our public universities in Kenya, with our institutions in Kenya. Is some of them have huge numbers of students that they need to take care of.
I will add to that. For example, the classes I'm teaching this semester, in one class I have just 13 students. In another class I have 15 students. So the one-on-one thing is very, very possible, very feasible, which is not the case. I taught at KU when I was on my sabbatical, and I had a class of 600 students. It is like addressing a public rally, in other words. So.
A public rally, I like that.
That's my school, man. It was almost impossible to locate your friend after the lecture. Because it's
Yeah, it was an interesting experience. Yes, I taught for 1 full year, and in a big hall, so you have to have a microphone and things, and students come and go, and it is quite a challenge. So I don't know how such a students then can actually coalesce online at the same time. It is not possible.
That is difficult.
That is very true. As you guys know, a large percentage of the Kenyan population in the US is composed of students. Professor Nasong, I know you've done some research. You and Professor Kefa Otiso have done some research around the diaspora community, the Kenyan diaspora community in the US. And as it is, you know, a large number of us students who came to this country, and most of the time they've been spending their time in school. How do you think this has affected those groups? And is that, especially for Professor Rotich, because I know you also run an organization that deals with students. How have we as a community taken care of those students since the lockdown, or where are they right now as we speak? Let's start with Professor Rotich with her, because I know you have
Yes.
an association in.
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
So yes, like you said, is actually the statistics. 26% 26% F1 students. Our U.S. institutions constitute of 21% of international students. So across the board, we have a lot of students, including myself. I came here as an international student. And by the way, shout out to my former schools, Kenya High School, Loreto Matunda, and Kenyatta University, and Kenya Science, where I last taught before I came here. Yeah. So yes, I've walked through that journey where I've actually taught. What is happening right now is there are a lot of challenges that students are going through. I studied Kenyan scholars, Kenyan students in diaspora, we call it CACID. It's actually a nonprofit organization that is registered in North Carolina. And Professor Nasongo is a great mentor to those students. So we brought together students because I saw a lot of struggles that the students were going through even before COVID. We have international students that we have students who are on academic scholarship. Most of those are in Ivy League schools. Then we have another category of students who are on athletic scholarships. And then we have students who are on partial scholarship or who are on sponsorship. What has happened after COVID is financial is a problem that cuts across the board. So for one right now, and again, I lived through because I have an example of what we did in our university. When the universities were closed, actually the University of North Carolina for those students who could not afford. We are public university, we're public funded by the state of North Carolina. So we made accommodations for all the local students who are not able to go home. Actually, there was an application process and they had to explain why they were not able to go home, as well as international students, because we knew that they were not able to do that. So therefore, those students stayed on campus, but it was only those who were staying on campus, those who are on full scholarship or those who had already paid their tuition, so they were able to stay on campus. Now, the semester has just closed, and actually I speak to a lot of them on most on a daily basis. I just actually got off the phone with one who was an athletics partial scholarship. So I speak to them on a daily basis. So what has happened is the institutions are closed. There was some funding relief that was given to universities. They call it the care package that was sent out. At this point in time, international students did not qualify. What that package does is if they need to travel along, we can pay for their tickets, we can help them with accommodation, whatever is needed, they have to just justify. International students do. So right now, students are out, accommodation, they have no food. Most of them cannot travel. There was a stay-home order. You stay home with no food, if I want to get groceries, I get into my car and drive to the store and come back. But they don't have that privilege because who is coming to take you to the store? So you are relying on Samaritans to bring you food and to buy you food and bring that at home. So that is a group of students. Those who are on scholarship, again, everybody has gone out. Those who are partially sponsoring themselves, when the institutions close, all those had to get out of campus. So you're looking at a lot of challenges in terms of food, finances, food, and money to buy food. There's also another issue with insurance. Those who do not have insurance, those who are on full scholarship, those who are on athletic scholarship, at least they have health insurance. Now, most of them are sponsored, they do not have an insurance. So that was a fear, because if you get sick, then what happens? So you're looking at financial, you're looking at health-wise, you're looking at travel. There's a travel ban. Actually, right now we're still trying to figure out what to do. Where can they go? So what we've done with Nasongo is we've done monthly, we've done conference calls where we're asking them. A few weeks ago, we had a lawyer come in to explain to them what are the implications of the changes, these immigration changes, what are the implications? And what do you need to do so you can stay in good status? I'm going to let my colleagues speak, and then I can come back to ask you.
Go ahead, Professor.
Yeah, I think you have covered almost everything. A very huge challenge for international students. For my institution, I think they allowed international students, if they could not travel, they were allowed to stay. As Professor Rotich mentions, it was a process. So you had to apply and justify why you needed to remain on campus. And they were allowed to do so. But the major challenge they face, as Professor Rotich has mentioned, is that even those who had the authorization to work, those job opportunities were lost. And so really making it through on a day-to-day basis is very difficult for these students. So in most cases, what communities are doing is that they are rallying behind causes of raising money and raising foodstuffs and then distributing them to those who are not able to buy food for themselves. And for the most part, that is how these students are actually surviving. And they're still on campus. So I'm not yet sure now what happens now that the colleges have closed and we are going into summer break. So I'm not sure about what is going to happen to them, but they are really facing a huge challenge.
Actually, all of them have to get out because we are not liable. Remember, they're only there for the semester.
Yes.
So what is interesting is a lot of them have to get out now. Speaking to one this afternoon, and somewhere in up north, Nebraska, she is out of campus. So what she did was she's staying with some friends. She's staying with they were good Samaritans. American students were able to say, hey, come on, because at that point in time, they didn't even have money for the ticket. And even if they had, flights are not going out. So now we're trying to figure out, hey, what is going on? Actually, I just sent out a message. I say, what's going on out there? Please let us know how we can rally together to at least get you to a place, because the summer is 3 months. They can't go home. They cannot work, like Nasongo said, they cannot work because most of the people here have been laid off. And then to make matters worse, they don't even qualify for the checks that we all got as citizens in this country. So they don't get any support, any financial support whatsoever.
Guys, as we summarize, as we wind up, please speak to especially those looking at what's going on around the world, and in view of the fact that there isn't any glimmer of hope in terms of finding a cure very soon. What's going to happen to those Kenyans back in Kenya who had hoped to join their campuses in the US? Starting with Professor Shadrach.
Well, for those who were, and I still receive quite a number of questions about the same issue, students who are interested in joining institutions up here. There are, I think, 2-3 points on this. Number one is that given the impact of COVID-19, institutions here in the US are really interested in recruiting more students. Because of the fact that this remote teaching is going to lead to the rate of retention going down, going low, even after the colleges reopen. And that is a very big fear on the part of the institutions. So they will be out looking for more students. The second aspect of it is that the Trump administration, its immigration policies are almost curtailing the possibilities of these international students coming. So that will be a very big hindrance. And then finally, I do not know how soon we are going to go back to the normal in terms of the aviation industry. So I see that even those students who had already been accepted into institutions in this part of the world, I don't know how they are going to make it across the seas and oceans.
Professor Rotich, 30 seconds.
Yeah. Okay, good. What I want to say is those who are here, stay connected, stay with the community, follow the policies, check what is going on. Those who are really considering coming back, my advice is see if you can defer your enrollment to the next semester to fall 2021. That way we know what is going on. In the process, take some courses at home, take some computer courses, take some driving courses, you know, some basic courses that can transfer. But be very careful about coming because we don't really know what is ahead. Of course, we want the students, the American, we want you to come, especially those who are paying because that's a huge income. You pay twice as much as the local students. But again, be very careful. Contact, talk to somebody, talk to us, make those careful decisions before you make, because even as we don't know what is going on next semester. Again, stay positive, stay connected to the community. The biggest problem I see is, especially our young people, they don't want to stay connected to the community. We can't help you if you don't know where you are, if you don't know what's going on. Thank you so much.
Viewers, I've been talking to some of the leading Kenyan professors based here in the US, and that's Professor Rotich and Professor Wanjala Nasongo. And this is something that we'll keep coming back to, because as it is right now, Kenyan students in the US are having a rough time. So we're going to reconvene this panel again just to review what has happened in the last 3 months. But for now, that's our show. My name is Chris Wamalwa. Again, this is Diaspora Live. Stay here to get more about the issues that are happening in the diaspora with Kenyans living abroad. Thank you very much, Professor Rotich and Professor Nasongo. Please, let's do this again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We're here.